Hi guys, I'm Roger Knowles and welcome to the AlwaysGamesTV review of Star Wars Battlefront 2 Beta. Now just to clarify before we go any further, everything I say in this review is for the Star Wars Battlefront 2 Beta, not for the full game. Now the beta has been running since last Wednesday if you had pre-ordered the game, and it has been open to everybody since Friday and has actually been extended for a couple of days by EA as well. What I want to cover in this review is some of the pros and cons of what I have experienced during this beta. But before we get into the full nitty gritty details of everything, I just want to say right off that this game is very, very, very good. I've thoroughly enjoyed the beta, it has been great fun and certainly is a massive improvement over the first game. The first game I did enjoy, it was good fun and it did feel very much Star Warsy, if that makes any sense. But it was very much a casual person's first person shooter game, which there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. However, it was disappointing that there wasn't an extra layer of detail in the gameplay. The environments were gorgeous, the sound was fantastic. However, once you'd played maybe 3 hours of it, it started to become very, very repetitive. I think the best person who actually came out with a great comment was Tom, who does the AlwaysGamesTV show with me. He said it was a mile wide and an inch deep, and it was right. The content, there was lots of content there in essence of different game modes, and it was an enjoyable Star Wars experience. But once you started to play a lot more of it, there wasn't a lot of customization. It felt very repetitive and very quickly became boring and dull. Now the best part of Battlefront 1 game was actually the free DLC which we got with it, which was compatible with the PlayStation VR, which is still one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had with VR. It's the X-Wing VR experience is just spot on. It was just unbelievable. If you've got a PlayStation VR and you haven't tried it, I'd say go borrow the first game or go purchase it really cheap somewhere, because that was wow, just simply wow. And yeah, if you've got a PlayStation VR, experience it, it's great. But on to the second game. So starting with the graphics of the game, how does the game look? Well, it looks amazing, as same as the first one. I do believe that the graphics look better than the first one, if that was any way possible. Maybe I don't. Maybe it does look the same, but I personally think it looks gorgeous. The environment is amazing. The two maps that we got to play on was the Theed map, which was if you're playing as the Separatists, you were attacking. If you're the Clone Army, you were defending, and that was the. It was kind of like rush mode from Battlefield, so it was a little bit like Walker Assault from the first game, and then it would progress off into the Palace. That was great fun. And then on the second map, it was the planet from the Force Awakens where the Cantina is, and you're playing as the First Order or as the Resistance, and it's kind of like capture the flag a little bit. The First Order had to go collect a artifact, which I think basically they were hinting at it might be Luke Skywalker's lightsaber. I could be wrong. But then they had them bring it back to their ship, with the Resistance trying to stop them from doing so. So there was that map. And then there was another game mode, which was the space battles, which was my personal favourite, and that also looked gorgeous. It really made you feel like you were part of a space fight within one of the movies. It was really, really good fun. So overall, the game was gorgeous. The explosions were perfect. It really immersed you into Star Wars, and then with the sound being absolutely spot on as well, it did like what the first game did. It really brought you into the Star Wars universe and really made you feel like you were part of a large overall battle going on within the universe or the galaxy, whichever you want to say. But yeah, so the overall great all-round experience for visuals and sound. But how did it play? How was the gameplay? Well, controls were great. I think they seemed a little bit better this time compared to the first game. The first game felt a little bit floaty when you were playing. It didn't feel like you were I don't know, it just didn't feel quite right. And maybe just me personally, but when you were running around, it didn't feel overly great. Whereas in this one, it feels a lot more accurate with your movement. I hope I'm making sense with that, but when you're aiming, you do feel like you're aiming right, and you are actually hitting your targets that you're going for. It doesn't feel floaty, and it just feels very sharp, a much more sharper game. It's not as sharp as like I would say Call of Duty. Call of Duty World War II beta was very grounded, very quite stiff movement, and very realistic. It's not gone that far, but it certainly feels a bit tighter than the Battlefront 1 game. Now, there weren't too many weapons within the beta. Each class had about 2, I believe, and then obviously you had your heroes with their weapons. Again, it was a nice variation that you had 2 weapons to choose from, but I think it was only really the assault that I noticed a big difference between the weapons. That the one was your standard, like, assault rifle, I guess. It was the bit like the E11 blaster from the first game, and then you could get like a submachine gun, so that they fired very differently. So submachine gun would fire quicker but with less damage. All the other classes are sort of felt the same between the 2 weapons. Again, I could be majorly wrong there, but the heavy didn't, the 2 guns didn't feel overly different, except that the second gun with each class could be customized. So you could add a scope, or you could craft a certain element that could be attached to it which give it a certain ability. So for example, with the scope you could put night vision on it and things like that. But overall in the beta, it's kind of hard to say how they were or how they're probably going to be in the main game because they were so limited. But again, they felt good, they felt right. At least they added an extra weapon in there, and apparently there is going to be many more weapons within the main game, which is good. I do believe in the Battlefront 1 beta there was a lot more weapons to choose from, but it's a slightly different system now, which I'll get into in a little bit. But yeah, again, the weapons felt fine. Now, the abilities are slightly different. You still have your 3 that you can choose from, and I believe there's a 4th, but the bottom one was always blank for me, so I can't really comment about that. But each class has 3 abilities, and these abilities can be actually changed or modified using star cards. And again, I'll get to those in a little bit more, but the abilities felt fine for each class. And actually, no, let's get into star cards now. So what happens is, when you are going to choose your class, you can go to the star card section, and depending on what level your class is, depending on how many is available to equip. So for example, on the heavy assault, there's something called sentry mode, where basically you get a minigun out and you start firing like as if you've got a minigun. That can be changed and modified with a star card. If you manage to unlock that star card in a drop, which is in a loot box, which we will get into a little bit later, or you can craft it, you can adjust that ability. So instead of firing constant blaster bolts, it will change to a little bit of a grenade launcher style. So there is actually a grenade launcher, but this one will fire a little bit quicker and a bit more consistently, but not as fast as if it was on normal sentry mode. So you instead of just being more accurate with the blaster bolts, you could fire this and get like area damage on some of the enemies. So that was nice that you could adjust your abilities depending on your playstyle. So that was a nice improvement over the first game. Now, the star cards that you use can, like I said, be unlocked in loot boxes, and there's different levels of star cards. I think there's like level 1, level 2, level 3 and level 4. Depending on what level it is, depending on how good it is, basically. So for example, let's say a star card increases damage. The level 1 might increase it by 2%, level 2 might increase it by 5%, level 3, 8, 4, 10, and then maybe the last one might be, I don't know, 15% damage, something like that. So the idea is you're going to want to equip the higher level cards, so then your character becomes more powerful. And again, this is going to start leading to the loot boxes topic, but I want to talk about those in just a few moments. So overall, the abilities felt good, and they felt that for example, I think it was like the commander class, if I'm correct, you could help buff other players in your team, so it was a lot more of a team aspect to it, more of a squad feel to the actual game than the first game. It felt like, for example, I was playing with one of my friends and he then give me a buff which would give me more health, and so you could work together to hopefully defeat the enemy and be much more effective within the battle. Now, I do want to talk about the loot boxes, and this is kind of a good and bad part of the game. It's going to be a little bit controversial. The loot boxes, I do like the system. So it's a little bit different, and I know a lot of people aren't going to like it. There's no essence of leveling up to unlock things anymore, unless it's unlocking the star card spaces that you can have more than one. For example, at the beginning you can, I believe if you get like to level 1 or level 2, you can unlock the first slot for star card during the beta, of course, and then at level 5 you can unlock 2 slots for star cards, and at level 10 you can unlock 3. But basically, to get these star cards, one of the ways is to unlock loot boxes. Now, you get one daily box that you could go to and unlock, and it will drop 3 items. Now, these 3 items could be all the way from cosmetics, to change how the character looks, to emotes, to crafting, to guns, and to star cards. And you don't know what you're going to get. It's a random roll. I like the aspect that you don't know what you're going to get, and that you could get a really, really sort of rare drop, which is quite cool, and you'll be like, oh yeah, I got it, yeah. And obviously sometimes you're just going to get random naff stuff. And for example, if you're struggling to get high level star cards, it's not the only way that you can get them. In these loot boxes, crafting materials are dropped, and then these can be used to either craft new cards or upgrade star cards to the next level. So it's not the only way that you can unlock things. The only downfall I would say to these loot boxes, which is not a little downfall, it's actually quite a big downfall, and it's been brought up in the video game news quite a lot recently, and that's that real world money can be used for in-game currency to buy these loot boxes. And this is where I'm sure you've probably heard or read a lot about it online. This is where it causes a lot of controversy, and I don't like using real world money to unlock these items, and I certainly won't be. Now, it's good for people who don't get a chance to play the game that often, but it does sort of break the game for people who just want to play it and don't want to spend money, and there'll be people out there who will just go spend the money to get these boxes. I know it's another way for the developer and the publisher to earn more money, but I don't agree with it. I think these should just be left to be spent with in-game money that can be earned, which you can earn this in-game money through just playing battles. So for example, I think one of the boxes was 1,000 credits and the other 2 were 1,100. And if I played a match and it went on for a long time, and if I got a high score, I'd get, I don't know, like 200 credits, something like that. So play 5 or 6 matches, I've got enough to buy a loot box. Done. But then it's like, if you start spending real money on these, you get a bad taste in your mouth for it then. And then people might start earning and getting these, they're paying their way through it, they're paying to win. And I don't like that. No one likes that. And it's just such a shame, because I actually do like this idea of progression through drops, through loot boxes, but as long as they can't be purchased with real money. It'd be better if they could only be purchased through hard work and sweat of playing the game. And the reason why I liked it, because it was different to something like Call of Duty or Battlefield. It was something, I believe there was actually loot drops in Battlefield, loot box in Battlefield, but never mind. Comparing it to Call of Duty, I'm glad there's something a little bit different, that this progression is through these boxes, not just for getting to the next XP bar or anything like that. And it's a bit random, so you feel like, oh, it's Christmas, I've got this really, really good one, yeah! You get that adrenaline rush, which is cool. But you know you earned it, and you didn't just pay for it. So I'd say that's probably one of the major aspects of the downfalls to this game. I doubt that they'll change it as the full release comes out. I just think it's a major shame, and I do like the system they've got implemented. I just wish you could buy them with real money. Now, one of the big changes to Battlefront 2 as well that they've made is that to get vehicles or heroes, in the first game you would just collect a token which would randomly spawn on the map. And this wasn't very popular with fans. And it was kind of frustrating when you were playing, because it was like everybody just run and like pile on top of these tokens to try and get them, and it didn't distract you from trying to actually do the objectives of the game, because you would be doing the same. You'd be like, oh wow, there's a hero token, I'd run over to it, and then you run out into the open and get shot. Whereas if that token wasn't there, you obviously wouldn't run out into the open, you would be focused on the enemy and you would try and kill them. What they've done in the second one is go on point system. So for example, if I kill a load of enemies, or if I do the objective or destroy certain elements on the map that'll help the to complete the objective, I'll be gain points. And then if I die and need to respawn back in, they will accumulate together, and I can then spend an amount of these points on whether or not I want to come in as a starfighter, a hero, a vehicle such as a walker or something like that. So it's in essence rewarding you for playing well. Now I know this might frustrate some people. Go, well, I'm not very good at it. I'm not very good at first-person shooters. I want to play the heroes. Well, unfortunately, that's video games. You need to get good. So, but it also hands these points out quite generously. So don't ever feel like you're not going to be able to unlock something. I think one of the rounds that I played shocking for ages. And I still earn, I think, like 1,500 points. And I think you can start purchasing like vehicles, I think, from 800 onwards. So at least in one game mode, you're going to be able to spawn in as something. Now, for it to stop people from spawning in, for example, there's 2 Boba Fett's. Only one is allowed on the map, at least in the heroes' circumstances. There's multiple, I think you can get multiple vehicles on the map as well, so you can have like 2 or 3 starfighters, a couple of walkers. But if there's a max on the map, it literally puts a cross through that choice, and then you can't spawn in until whoever is using that hero or vehicle gets killed, and then it becomes available and you can purchase it if you wish to. Personally, I like the system. It works much better than before. I think it's going to please the much more of the larger audience for this system rather than before. I think before it just seemed a bit of a cheap way out of trying to deal with it, and this seems a little bit more thought out, and I think they could build on top of this as well. I'm not entirely sure how, but it does give a lot more room for adapting for them later on online if they want to change it. And I don't like to leave things on a negative note, but I do want to talk about one last thing which didn't impress me overly much. Again, it wasn't fully unlocked during the beta, but that is the arcade mode. And the arcade mode is basically split screen, and you can play it, I believe, split screen online and split screen on your couch, if that makes sense. And it seems so tacked on. It's basically, on one of the modes is waves of enemies, and you choose either a Darth Maul or a droid, and every time you kill an enemy you get 3 seconds added onto your time. There's a 30-second timer, by the way, so it's counting down, and if you kill an enemy, that's added 3 seconds onto your time. The idea is you've got to kill like 40 enemies without running out of time. It was boring as hell. It was dull. It just seemed pointless. I didn't overly enjoy it. It just seemed a way of maybe just getting used to the gameplay a little bit, sort of. But this seemed very tacked on and not worth it. I just wish they'd just made the multiplayer split screen. That'd have been a lot more enjoyable. I don't think the whole arcade system could be just taken out entirely of the game, and I wouldn't care in the slightest. It was just dull as hell. But again, I shouldn't end it on a negative note, and I'm not going to end it on a negative note. Overall, the game is fantastic. It is very, very good, and this is just the multiplayer. I'm actually buying this game purely for the single player. I want to know the story of Star Wars Battlefront 2, so I'm extremely excited for the full release so I can get to play the story. Multiplayer is kind of an extra for me, which it used to be back in the day. If you remember, like, the single player was always the main aspect and multiplayer was a tack on. It probably is the other way around these days, but this is how I'm approaching it. Single player is the main aspect of this game, why I'm purchasing it, and the multiplayer is just a bonus. And the multiplayer is awesome. Such an improvement over the previous game. Still not perfect and still annoying in certain aspects, but so much better. Am I excited for the full release after playing the beta? Yep, you betcha I am. I can't wait. So that pretty much wraps up my review of Star Wars Battlefront 2 beta. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully I didn't waffle on too much. I'm Roger Knowles. This is AlwaysGamesTV, and I will hopefully see you in the next video. Bye guys.